Hey, let's do some recording. So what I want to do over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see how it goes, is try and do more recording, just looking at some of the communities that are out there, some I like, some I don't like. And what I want to do today is just go through a couple of communities that I find really interesting. Usually because there's something interesting that they're doing, or they're doing something unique or special, and communities that just kind of interest me. And we spend so much time looking at online communities, going through website after website after website, and really trying to get a sense of what the community is like, what it's not like, how it's going, is it doing interesting things? And so it's interesting to try and share that. And we'll see how it goes. It might be something that we continue doing, or it might be something that we don't do. So let's begin with the DigitalOcean community. So DigitalOcean is really interesting to me. So the first thing you might recognize when you look at this community is that it's a custom build. As far as I know, anyway, it's a custom build. It doesn't really look like any of the existing communities that are out there, and it violates so many rules as well. You might even wonder, is this even a community? Like, does this qualify as a community? Because there's no discussions on the homepage. Like, where are the discussions? You've got popular topics. You've got what seems to be an introduction place. You've got get more involved for donations, a hub for good. You've got favorite topics. You can find what you're looking for. You can sign up. But where are the discussions? I think we're going to see a lot more communities like this, because the old rule, and one that we used to spend a lot of time promoting as well, was you should have the discussions right up there at the top of the homepage on a community. And I think this made a lot of sense in the past. I think now for most hosted enterprise communities that are out there, that rule doesn't apply anywhere near as much as what it used to. I think typically most of the people visiting your community are probably there for the first time, or they're there because they asked a question, or they went to a search engine, they asked a question, they got an answer, and then that was kind of it. They didn't find what they were looking for, and so they just kind of navigated their way to the homepage. And more, I think homepage is going to resemble this. I don't think this is quite what it should be, but I think it's doing some interesting things. So what I like is the navigation. So what you see, they've got a consistent navigation bar across the top here, but in the community, it's really clear what each of these things are. Tutorials, questions, learning paths for business, product documents, social impact. What's great about this is that a lot of communities actually don't label their navigation as best as it could be. So for example, a lot of you will have a space for forum. But what does forum even mean? You know, forum can mean different things to different individuals, but questions is easy. Like, it's easy to understand what questions is. And when you click on it, it's fast, it's quick, and it just kind of works. If we want to know, like, if the question is in there, we can put how to fix Docker, because we saw that at the top. And again, interestingly, it doesn't come up with the top one. So maybe it doesn't work that well. So it ranks it by newest first. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it should have a better ranking system. I think popular might be better there. That's really interesting. Yeah, I don't think ranking newest first is the best idea at all. It's also interesting, a lot of websites that use Coveo, maybe Search Unify as well, spend a huge amount of money on a unified search tool, a federated search tool, and then they can't quite get it to click because it just doesn't work the way people want it to work. This is interesting. Let's try API. Let's try another one. API Platform Functions Experience. Interesting. It doesn't show up. Yeah, so I don't think this search tool works well, which is kind of a shame because the rest of the community is pretty good. Comes to asking a question. It's a little bit messy, but it's pretty clean. Like, it's a pretty clean way. It's very clear what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Log in to post a question. I like it. I just like it. I think the ghost text here works well as well. I don't think it's clear though that you can't click on this yet. I think log in to post a question should be higher up, but generally it's good. But generally, like, the community is really good at just including everything, like tutorials as well. The tutorials just works. It's clear what this is. It doesn't say this is a LMS or knowledge base. It's tutorials. Everyone understands what that means. And it should all work as well. How to remove Docker containers. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that comes up first. And this is all strong. And notice how fast it is. It's easy, popular topics. The content is on the left. It's just a really clean, nice community. Was it helpful? Still looking for an answer. Again, these are all good things to have. Most platforms will have one or the other of these. Do you need both? I don't think you do. I think it either helps you or it doesn't. But it's kind of interesting to have still looking for an answer and encourage people where to go for that. That could be interesting. But I think maybe you need to minimize one of these two. But overall, yeah, very strong community, good tutorials. Learning paths as well. Really interesting. Learn Python 3. There's a clear journey to go through. It shows you what tutorials to go through as well. Really, really strong. I like this community a lot. It's one of the ones that I recommend a lot that everyone tends to ignore. But yeah, I like it. Let's try another community, Okta. So I should disclose we worked with Okta a couple of years ago. Did a bunch of strategy and consulting work for them. And some of this is baked into this and some of it isn't. But I don't want to take credit for it. I think what's happened over the last couple of years is that Okta have probably developed, I think, probably one of the best, if not the best, Salesforce community that's out there. I mean, Trailblazer is good, but it's not on the Salesforce platform itself, at least not on the experience one that they promote externally. So what I like about Okta is that the design is really strong. It's one of those communities that isn't ugly to look at. Like there's a lot of communities that I really like, but when you look at them, you're just kind of like, ugh, you know, like UKG, I love you folks, but you know, when you visit a community like this, you're kind of like, ugh, it just kind of looks a bit messy and ugly and things are misaligned. Okta, I think this at the top really helps. This kind of navigation bar right at the top, very strong. I think it helps us all integrated in one place. And they're also treating a community as not just a support hub, but where you can get access to more information. The monthly buzz is interesting. I'd be interested to see how popular that is. Opens in a different site. Yeah, it's okay. I think the font is too small, or maybe Nope, I think the font is way too small here. I think if you're going to do this, you've got to make like these headings a lot bigger, space out the text more. I think this is more of a newsletter, but I assume they send it out as a newsletter as well. But it's also interesting, not many people are looking at it anyway. So maybe consider if this should be in your community or not. What else? Back to the community homepage. How could I participate? Let me just move this down a sec. That's a bit better. New to the community. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, pretty clean. I do think though that people just don't read blocks of text. Like no one's going to read this at all. Like you can usually just get rid of blocks and text. And also, how do I participate? You see all this text, connect with like-minded peers, find the right question, submit ideas. You can remove all this text. Like these 4 things, they're self-explanatory, you know? You don't need to over-explain it. And you can make the important parts really stand out as well. Like I think this would work better as boxes and as a custom design page. But generally it's good. But look out for that as well. There's so many opportunities in most communities where you can just remove text. Like the thing itself is a self-explanatory thing. And when people click on the page, they're going to get the information. Interestingly there, the own points isn't a clickable link, but the rest are. But yeah, it's stuff. And also, if the link that they click on takes them to an explanation, then that all makes sense. Okta, I think, actually have a pretty good ideation engine as well, which is worth checking out. Let me just close down that. But generally, Okta's strong. Like, I like the way you can engage with it. I don't think you need how can I participate? Why should I participate? I feel you're missing. I feel all these 3 are what newcomers would be interested in. You know, I think you could probably use this space for the top posts, best content, upcoming events, something that would be more active and lively rather than just the newcomer stuff. Because once people have been here and they've seen this once, they don't need to see it again. So be mindful of that. How do I browse by product? Honestly, if you have to over-explain it, you probably need a better design of your website. Oh, this is great, actually. Ignore what I just said. This is really strong. Yeah, this is really good. I might be tempted to direct people here versus the homepage. Yeah, I like this. I like this as a navigation system. They've done a really, really great job of this. I like how clean it is, how easy it is, knowledge base. Yeah. So they've got the product hubs in place. Again, just really strong. What's new? Every product has its own hub. Knowledge article, answer questions. Again, it's Salesforce, so the design is never going to be great, to be honest, but yeah, it's really strong. Certifications as well. Yeah, I like this. This is good. So it links to a specific place in the help center that makes sense. Pulls in other information. Yeah, this is good. Really, really good. Should we go to the discussions? Also, let me see. I don't like discussions and questions. Also, it's interesting that discussions take you to discussion groups. That's not clear. I think like user groups would be better there than discussions. Discussions is a very vague expression. Like, what's the difference between a discussion and a question? We all know the answer to that, but you have to think about it for a second. Yeah, questions. So group-wise, all the groups seem to have a lot of members in them. But if you look by the latest activity, there's a lot of groups there that you should probably close. No activity. Wow, a lot of these have no activity this year. So let me just do that by top to bottom. Wow, okay. I think 2023, from Canada on down, you could probably close these groups down. If they've got no activity this year and it's August now, yeah, you can probably close those groups down, probably give a warning or a notification to these groups that need more activity, and then really double down on the groups that are working. Like, it's clear that workflows, integrations, and these kind of things are quite successful. It's interesting as well that some of these groups have a description and some don't actually. Yeah. Another thing to think about, even though there probably is a relationship between members and the latest activity, it's not a straight line. You know, groups of 7 members, 8 members still have a decent level of activity, as well as 1,000 members, 264. Don't know, this is a group with 200. I'm guessing this is all the members of the community. What have they done here? Okay, I think I know what's happened here. Okay, so I think what has happened here is they've put all of their members into a group because Salesforce doesn't have a default newsletter tool. And also, like, there's no notifications on Salesforce unless people are typically in groups. I mean, not notifications, no summaries or digests in Salesforce unless you're in a group. So I think what they've done is put all of their members in a group to get around that. And it works, but it's a messy way of doing it. It's a very messy way of doing it. But workflows, overall, this looks good. Good, strong group, good level of activity. People engaged. Not super active, though, actually. Not super active, but it gets a reasonable level of activity. To be honest, though, I'm not a big fan of having subgroups in communities anymore. It's not like they're bad. It's just a very outdated way. Like, if you want groups today, you go to WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, tools that are built for it. These tools are usually just the same technology as discussion boards, and people don't want to participate in groups like that. In groups, people typically want to chat, and chat, you need more of that free-flowing discussion, not, I want to start a discussion about X. And that's what groups force you to do. And that's why I think most groups really aren't that successful at all. Overall, this is, yeah, it's okay. Discussions generally good. You see as well the problem with having only one answer is that it highlights the rest of them aren't getting any answers. Not sure about test. So overall, yeah, it's a strong community. It feels like there are responses to almost every discussion that's coming in. Let's take a look at a few of these. So most of them maybe are getting support from customer support. Let's take a look. Yeah, so what seems to be happening is they don't seem to have a large number of top members responding. what I'm guessing is happening is that that's a bad response. That's lazy. What I'm guessing is happening is there's an escalation process where after maybe 24 hours, because that feels about the right time, it gets escalated to a support rep. And this happens actually in communities that are quite complex, where you don't have a huge audience. It's very difficult to build the kind of MVP program that you want to build. And that's when you have like the support team that are jumping in and answering questions. And it's okay, but what they typically do is direct to articles that are out there already. I think what will happen is ChatGPT will eliminate these kind of questions at some point in the future, but we're more or less stuck with them for now. Yeah, so what they tend to do is jump in and direct to an existing article. I'm not sure it's the best way of doing it, but I do understand that if you don't have a good level of activity, it's a common way of doing it. Browsing around some other stuff, knowledge base. Again, it's all Salesforce, and it's all part of their help center. By the way, notice with Salesforce how long it takes to load things. Did you see that? That must have been like 3 or 4 seconds. And this is one of the issues with Salesforce. Like, it protects your data well, it integrates okay, but for everything else, it's so frustrating. Yeah, it seems pretty good. Pretty easy to navigate around. You always notice the blank space though. When something isn't in use, like you do notice that a lot. Yeah, but yes, overall seems a pretty strong community. Let's just check out ideas. So ideas is hosted on a different site. And so you have to be an Okta customer to join. And that's kind of an issue, but I guess you don't want your competitors seeing the best ideas that are rising to the top. I get it. I'm personally not a fan, but I do get it. I'm not too worried about that. Let's just check out discussions. Oh, we checked out discussions. Questions, I think we checked out already. Again, you notice how long it takes to load. Like my internet speed here is one gig. Like it should be a lot faster than this. But Salesforce is just slow. Yeah, I really think though with Salesforce, like you only need the header. Like you don't need that snippet as well. Like people are going to click or not, and they're going to use that subject line to do it. And people would be able to get through a lot more questions or browse them a lot easier if that wasn't there. Should we go to webinars very quick? Okay, so here's the problem with webinars when it's an upcoming one, you don't have any that are upcoming. It doesn't look good. It just looks blank. And that tends to happen a lot. I think a lot of these is just the default nature of Salesforce. But yeah, a lot in the past seems to be pretty strong. And then we'll check out blogs. Clean. Yeah. I think that Laylo's doing a really, really great job with this, actually. Like, I think she's doing a really great job. But yeah, I like the community. I think it integrates well. There's a couple of things I would point out about it, but overall, it's a really, really strong online community. Let's point out another community that I kind of like. So Outsystems is one of those communities that doesn't get a lot of attention, especially now that Jen doesn't work for them anymore, Jen Lopez. But they've had a really strong team for a really long time. And you notice it's kind of similar to DigitalOcean in a way. What I like about this is that they do have like a good springboard for where people want to go. I think that's good. I think this ranking system is good. And what I really like is this up here. How many downloads they've had, how many completed courses they've had. Like what I would love to see here are things like the average time to get a response, the percentage response rate. I think that's good. I think showing members as well is nice if that's your top members. But again, you can see pretty similar things in place. I think they've got a custom community platform. It's got kind of an Answer Hubs vibe about it. Overall, it's good. I don't think you need 4 pin topics to the top, but overall, I think it's strong. Discussion, difference between discussions and questions. I'm not going to go through the process of registering for these communities at the moment. We've done that a lot, but this time I'm just kind of browsing through them and see what occurs to me. Not sure you need the subscription thing. I'd be surprised if many people use this because it seems kind of annoying at the bottom. Code of conduct, yeah, people probably aren't going to look at it, but it's worth a try. Overall good. It looks kind of clean. A little bit old school, perhaps. Log in to answer, log in to follow. I don't think you need two login buttons there. Get involved, jobs, ideas. Let's check out ideas. Yeah, so what happens with a lot of platforms, well, not a lot, but the few platforms that offer ideation as well, is that they usually just forums, and that seems to be more or less the case here. Some adaptation of forums. Doesn't make it bad. It just means like, it's okay. It's not ideal. It's not clear how popular this idea is. 7 likes. Where is it in the process? I think their ideation is probably a little weak. But overall, the form is good. Training is good. I feel like it's just a very strong online community. I think it's got a lot going for it. Navigation all kind of works, but I just like the homepage. I think it's a really nice, clean homepage. I think the subscriber option here is good. Yeah, I think it's just really nice, really clean. I think like we should be seeing a lot more communities at this level. And it also shows you like, even though I don't recommend most people build their own platform, if you are a community of developers or for developers, you might have the expertise to do it. And so then it might be worthwhile doing. Check out a couple of others. I might skip on bunch for now. Let's do Apple. Apple has one of the most interesting communities that are out there today, but they don't get as much attention because when people think of Apple, they think of like the cult brand of Apple, the people standing outside of shops and those kind of things. But one of the really interesting things about the Apple community, well, first, Apple is a very secretive brand, right? They don't post a lot, they don't share a lot. It's a very controlled environment. So having a community for them, I'm guessing, is quite a concern. So the homepage is okay. Like, it's clearly built for a mobile experience, right? It's a mobile first homepage. Not a surprise really given Apple, but the navigation is clean. I think they could probably just get rid of this. I'm not sure it adds too much, or at least put it to the side like Outsystems and bring this up, but it's clean. The featured tips is interesting. Not sure how much traffic it gets, new to the community. But I think they know that almost everyone that comes here is going to click on one of these 6 options here. And I think it's good to know that. So iPhone, again, like I think the Apple community used to be on, I think they had an old version of Jive that they downloaded and had developed themselves. And then they relaunched their community, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. It still looks a little bit like Jive at times, but yeah, it works pretty well. Again, you can see like when you don't use these things often, you can see when they don't show up. But I think what this is, and if I get this right, the Apple is if a Apple rep has responded. The star, I can't remember what that is. And the tick is if it's a answered question or not. I think that's correct. Again, that's an interesting feature. Like, so best answer is a tick. That makes sense. Yeah, overall it seems good. Don't know why this is the best answer though. Thank you. I'll give it a shot. Not sure about that. Get insights from experienced members. It's an interesting way of promoting the community as well. Check out this user tip by Lawrence Fish. That's interesting. I haven't seen Apple typically promoting an individual person before. Let's see what else we can look at Apple. Top participants, level 10. Interesting, top participants, level 10. The gamification is kind of interesting. Clearly, they've got one person that is crushing it. Not a surprise. Only goes up to level 10. A lot of people on level 10. Okay. Pretty clean, easy, simple. So let's imagine that I have an issue, right, with Apple. Let's imagine that my iPhone isn't working. This is where I think Apple's kind of interesting because you might land at a page like this and let's say my iPhone has frozen. What do I do? Kind of basic, but the kind of question you see people answer. And it took a little while, but it does give you like some options really fast. That drop down works. For this to work, by the way, it has to be fast. So I like having this above ask the question. Not sure you need topics, but this above the question is pretty strong. And then you can ask the community. So this is where it gets really interesting, right? And this is where Apple absolutely shines, perhaps more than any other brand. Take a look at this. They give you a lot of really simple advice without putting too much text there. Really simple. And this is the other thing you'll notice about Apple. There's so little text on this community. Like there's so little text compared to some of the other communities that we look at. Like Kronos, for example, you see text all over the place. Maybe Unbounce as well. There's a lot of text. But Apple's like a very clean community site. But I like the way it guides you through the question. I like the way it gives you a limit for how long it can be. I like the way it saves the content from your last session. I think that's quite good. And I love this, where you can tag the specific advice that you're referring to. So it's taken the information that it knows about me into the community and made it so much easier for me to select the right topic. I can select it's my iPhone. I can select, let's just say I call my iPhone machine. There's a different story behind that. And again, this is really cool, really clever. I like that a lot. I can't turn on my iPhone. The screen has frozen. It's frozen. I can't restart it. What do I do? And then let's click post. Yeah, that's pretty clean. Notifications. It's interesting to promote this really high up, especially this one tip. Yeah, I like that. I like the proactive user tips as well. So let's go back to the community. So you can learn more. I mean, in my experience, a lot of people put way too much time in trying to get people to learn more about their community, and no one really reads that. But you can have it there if you want. Let's see if we can look at the gamification aspects. So gamification is so interesting in most communities. So Apple does a couple of unique things. One is that they're very clear and specific about what you get for your different kinds of points. I like that. I think that's okay. I think the danger with this is that people try to cheat the system. If they know exactly what works, what tends to happen is either they create a lot of content themselves, they start replying to every question that are out there. That's why that one-time only bonus, I think that's really interesting. I don't see too many communities doing that. Attending a conference call is interesting. And they've overcome that exponential issue where the more you go up the curve, the harder it becomes to go to the next level. But it can become so difficult that people will just give up in the end. And they've done quite a good job of getting around that. Attending a communities meetup. That's interesting. They have meetups, level ups and perks. Yeah, so the perks are a little bit vague, report, custom image, like pretty benign stuff. But this is where it gets interesting. Once you get past level 5, it becomes kind of vague. I mean, it kind of gives you an idea. Like they didn't used to have this on there. This is a new update, I think. Last time I reviewed the community, this wasn't here. But you can see as well, like it's cleverly done. Like by keeping it vague, you don't really have much motivation to cheat. And you can also look at how the point system increases. 150 points, and then 350, 500, 3,000, 4,000, 12,000. That's a way too big of a bump there. 15,000, it's weird. 15,000, 15,000, 30,000. I don't know how they're selecting their escalation points, but yeah, you get the idea. The other thing that's cool about Apple is that beneath a lot of the knowledge articles they have this here, where you can start a discussion in Apple support communities about that topic. I like that a lot, and I like that it's above Apple support. If you want more people asking questions in your community instead of contacting support, having this on or below the articles is useful. And notice how Apple tackles it compared to other sites we've looked at, where yes, you say if it's helpful or not, but your next step, it just guides you naturally there. That's what I was talking about a little before. Shall we try one more community here? Let's maybe try Sony. Let's do Sony. I'm doing Sony because I don't like it. I really don't like it. I think Sony is such a huge brand and the community has such huge potential. And because of who they are, like it's Sony, it's always going to get a huge amount of activity. but I don't think it gets anywhere near the level of activity that it should. And I think often they're just going in the wrong direction. I think they have a support community that's trying to be a place where people share their photos and proactive tips. But if you look at almost every single post here, every single post is a support question. And at some point, you're just going to be like, it is what it is. Let's go with that flow. And it's also just the design of the site is just ugly. This about section just kind of hovers there. You've got this bright color here. There's blue, there's black. There's like this, I don't know. Yeah, just everything about it is ugly. The join now to be part of the experience, that's kind of in the middle, would actually be in the navigation bar along with the search. You could move all this up. The gallery, just get rid of it. Like, no one cares. They want support. They want answers to support questions. The call to action, the new message should be a lot higher up as well. Like, if you compare this to, what was it, Outsystems that we were doing before? Let me just load up the Outsystems community again. Like, you notice how much cleaner this is. You know, what are you searching for? Latest information, log in, sign up. This is just cleaner. And Sony's just ugly. I think to make a point, I actually redesigned this, posted it on my blog a couple of years ago. And so I guess activity, but again, like, they got a lot of discussions that don't get a response. It's one of those communities that wouldn't surprise me if it disappeared. There's some parts that just don't work. You know, there's 0 people online. Like, it just doesn't work. You've got like bad spacing at the bottom here because no one's really showing this community much love. And it's not, these things aren't huge deals, but it's Sony. You know, it's one of the biggest brands in the world. You have to get this stuff right. General chat, new message, latest photos in general chat, because of course that's what you want. Yeah, they get responses, but it's interesting that some don't. You know, it's interesting that some people will post a question and for a brand like Sony to get no response. Yeah, I don't like it. I really just don't like it. I feel like this community doesn't get a lot of love. And I think the photo competitions just don't belong on a support site like this. There's other places you can do this where it would make sense. Let's just go to PC and e-reading. Oh, they've got the gallery here as well. Okay, because of course you want galleries of your PC. What do people actually submit here? Again, it just looks a bit ugly. Like, Chorus, you folks, you're just not a gallery brand. Okay, I don't know why we want that. At least people, I'm guessing, are editing this. Yeah, like, if you're going to have photos, then use like a tool that's dedicated for it. You know, there's better tools and better options today. Sony, I just don't like it. It just feels like this very unloved community. It's structurally weird. The call to action, like this black here, they've got this wrong. So your call to action should be in a brighter primary color. Putting new message in black, the same as the background, that doesn't make sense. Like, it has to stand out. You should have a color that represents a call to action. That splash of color that you use really sparingly, but it should draw the eye and be like, hey, this is where you go. And it's also share your experience. No, that's not what this community is. This just isn't what this community. This is a support community. You know, get your questions answered. You know, these are the kinds of messages that you want. And some brands do it well. Like this would be a bit better. Something more like this. Kronos, yeah, that's okay too. Unbalanced, build your business. Yeah, if it's not a support site. Gong. We'll come back to this another time, perhaps. Apple, what did Apple have on their community? I cannot remember. Apple discussions. Let's take a look. Yeah, okay. So this is probably exactly what Sony should have. It's very clear. It's very clean. It's not trying to be something it's not. The Sony community is. And I think that's kind of unfortunate. Share your experience? No. What you want to see here instead is find answers. Ask, this is what people are coming to the community to get. And it's really clear that's what's happening here. Anyway, I hope that gives you just a couple of things to think about, some things to look at, how we kind of look at communities and what's working well and not working well. And this is very much at the tactical level. Like, I fully respect that every one of us is working in constraints that can limit what we can do. And sometimes we have control over everything and sometimes we don't. And so I get that, but there's usually a mixture of tactical tweaks and structural things that we can look at. So it's just being an idea of a few things that I like and I don't like in communities. And let me know in the comments if you liked it. Thanks a lot. I'll see you soon.